my god, I'm jazzed. Tell me that doesn't make you want to go out and do parkour right now. As a kid, one of my favorite things to do was visit my local video store and pick out movies to rent based on how cool the covers were. Of course, being an adolescent preteen in a post-Matrix world meant that my eye would normally wander towards the sci-fi action section. And folks, I will never forget walking into that video store and picking out District B13. I love this movie, and I personally think that anybody who enjoys a good sci-fi action film should check it out. So I called up my good friend Chris Bumbray, who happens to be an expert on this movie, and he's here to tell you why District B13 is the best movie you never saw.
J'aimerais bien la voir sa gueule quand il va apprendre la nouvelle.
Lave la ma gueule, alors ça t'inspire?
In the mid-2000s, you could be forgiven for thinking action films had gotten a little bit stale.
You don't want to do this.
The genre tends to go up and down in waves, and whenever something hits in a huge way, you always get derivative, increasingly stale copies. Think about all the die-hard rip-off clones we got in the 80s and 90s.
These things are gonna sell like hotcakes.
Or the way every movie tried to copy The Matrix with bullet time and wire work post-1999.
If I could save time in a bottle.
Heck, one could say we're experiencing it right now with superhero movies and the John Wick clones.
Guys.
What are you still doing here, old man?
I'm gonna fuck you up.
Whenever this happens, it's more or less left to international cinema to come along and shake things up with something a little bit different, done far outside of the mainstream in order to revitalize the genre. And that's what happened in 2004 when a small movie from France, District 13, or Banlieue 13 as it's called in France, came along and introduced parkour to mainstream audiences.
Oh no, he's one of those parkour free-running guys. We'll never catch him!
So what's parkour?
Michael! Parkour! Parkour!
This is Parkour, internet sensation of 2004, and it was in one of the Bond films.
Think of it as free running, done in an urban setting mixed with acrobatics and martial arts, which took a page from Asian martial arts disciplines as well as the cinematic kung fu prowess of Bruce Lee. It was founded by the star of District 13, David Bell, a Parisian who came from a long line of highly skilled rescuers in the Paris Fire Brigade, whose skills rubbed off on David, along with the fact that he took military training and was excellent at running obstacle courses. With this knowledge, he founded a group called Yamakasi, which took a page from Asian martial arts disciplines, people like Bruce Lee, Jackie Chan, and other Hong Kong martial arts action film stars. Eventually, the group drummed up some notoriety in France, with action director and producer Luc Besson bankrolling a 2001 film called Yamakasi that featured a lot of them. Bell himself didn't feature in the film, but he became much in demand doing his stunts in commercials and also started coordinating stunts for various Besson movies, leading to District 13. The film is a small-scale action film shot in France that features Bell as Leto, a resident of District 13, which is a ghetto of 2 million people that has been sealed off by the government and essentially been allowed to govern itself.
Je suis né dans cette banlieue. Elle était déjà pourrie à ma naissance. Et pour mes 18 ans, on a construit un mur tout autour.
Shades of Escape from New York, a movie writer-producer Luc Besson was a little too fond of ripping off, as years later he made too close of a copy of it with Lockout.
What happened in that room in New York?
What was the question?
And wound up being sued by John Carpenter, who, of course, won.
Before we continue with our video, here's a reminder to click the Store tab on any of our JoBlo channels and browse our collection of the latest and freshest designs in our merch store. Go get you some.
At the time, Besson ran a studio called EuropaCorps, which specialized in churning out movies for the international market. Their international hits included the Jet Li vehicles, Kiss of the Dragon and Unleashed, as well as the Transporter series and eventually the Taken films.
But what I do have are a very particular set of skills. Skills I've acquired over a very long career.
Some of their biggest hits were specifically for the French market, with the Taxi franchise especially popular.
C'est parti!
District 13 was made for that market, with it designed as a vehicle for Bell, as well as Cyril Raffaelli, who plays an undercover cop sent into the district to disarm a bomb that's been planted on a missile aimed at Paris. Bell's Leto is kind of a Robin Hood type figure who runs afoul of the district's main enforcer, K2, who kidnaps his sister.
Il y a sa sœur, Lola, la sœur de Leto. Elle travaille à l'hyper. On n'a qu'à la récupérer et on l'oblige à sortir de son trou.
Thus, the two pair up to infiltrate the ghetto. District 13 was the first film for director Pierre Morel, who would later helm Taken.
I will look for you. I will find you. And I will kill you.
One thing about it is that it was shot with a relatively low budget, so instead of CGI, it's done in an old-school way, with it jam-packed with fight sequences that are tinged with parkour. The best is the first big action sequence where Leto uses parkour to escape an apartment building being overrun with thugs. Running a tight 86 minutes, it must be said that the movie never quite reaches the dazzling heights it does during this first action scene as it goes on, but it remains a tight, engaging action flick with Bell so good in the lead, it's crazy his career never really took off. Part of this might be due to his heavy French accent. District 13 was given a virtual shot-for-shot remake in English called Brick Mansions, which co-starred the late Paul Walker, with Bell reprising his own role, but he wound up dubbed in the final cut. Nevertheless, he's had a solid career as an actor and choreographer in France. One interesting thing worth noting is that while District 13 was only a modest success in France, it became a cult hit in North America, with parkour suddenly showing up in movies like Casino Royale. With former Yamakasi member Sébastien Foucault memorably going up against Daniel Craig's James Bond in a sequence that solidified the latter as the new 007 in the minds of many. District 13 eventually got a sequel, District 13 Ultimatum, but it's not quite as good as the original. It's relatively easy to find and a must-watch for action fans. But if you're going to try parkour at home, folks, I'd advise you to be careful. It's a good way to break some bones.
Parkour!
Thank you for clicking on our video, everybody. If you like what you saw here, please make sure you like the video and subscribe and share with your friends who like this sort of content. JoBlo was created by movie fans for movie fans, and we appreciate your support.